Welcome, everybody, to the Dynasty Pros Weekend Warmup. Every week, Mike Lindberg and I, Brendon Booth, are going to be bringing you a warm-up for your weekend. What are we going to be doing? Well, Mike's going to go over some news. We're going to go over some injuries. We're going to give you our starts and sits. I'm going to give you some streamers. Mike's going to contribute too. Everything can be found on Dynasty Pros YouTube. Everything can be found on dynastyprosfootball.com. Mike's stuff, my stuff. We'd love to have you on there. Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself more than I just did, and let's get this show rolling.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be our first inaugural show of the weekend warm up, and we're excited to have everybody here. Yeah, we're excited to be here. So you can find myself on Twitter at FFCanuck99, and you can find all my written content at dynastypros.com. You can find us also on Twitter at dynastypros. Brandon, where can they find you?
I'm at Big Boned FFB on Twitter, Big Boned FFB on Substack. That's my newsletter. And at Big Boned FFB is my YouTube channel. I've got some pretty cool podcasts that I've even done one with Mike, and it was a really, really good one. Come on over there, like and subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Do the same with our Dynasty Pros content, and it's dynastyprosfootball.com. That football part is really important, so we can't forget that. Dynasty Pros on Twitter, dynastyprosfootball.com on the internets.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started here. So week one jam-packed with what? Chaos?
Chaos.
Utter chaos, right?
Did that week even happen, or did I just like dream a week away?
I don't know. My brain still hurts trying to process everything that went down. That was really chaos. Shout out to though Nick and Sam from Dynasty Pros for helping me get a grip of my emotions after listening to their week one overreactions podcast. Super important, everybody, not to overreact after week one, and we really have to trust our processes. Brandon, how are you feeling after week one? You clearly still a Raider fan.
Yeah, top of the AFC West. Undefeated, baby. No, I had a pretty good week. I won the majority of the leagues that I'm in. I had more top of the league finishes than I had bottom of the league finishes, so that was good. In the Scott Fish Bowl, I wound up 2-0. I was over the median and I won, so that was pretty good. And one of the things that I tried to bring up in my start and sit column last week was it's week one. Crazy things are going to happen. You have to stick with your process. You can't make crazy decisions after week one is over, and you can't overthink putting your lineup together in week one because you drafted guys at a certain spot. Go with your gut instinct on that. We have an entire preseason of consensus where everybody thinks that a wide receiver is going to be the wide receiver 12. And for the most part, things kind of worked out that way. Now, there were some things that happened, like Daniel Jones getting absolutely smoked, but he was not part of everybody's top 10 going into the season. You had Lamar Jackson kind of, not putting up a huge game, but that's going to happen sometimes. That doesn't mean go away from your players. And so we're kind of here to tell you these are the guys that you want to stick with. But we have some, if you have to like cover an injury or something like that, we have a start suggestion for you. We have sit suggestions for you, guys that we think are just going to not live up to their expectations based on what we've seen so far. But let's get into those injuries because it has been an absolutely bonkers week in terms of what's happening to guys and their medical issues.
Yeah, man. I mean, I really hope that next week's list is a lot shorter and we're not having to bring too many people in here. So the biggest news of the week, obviously, was Aaron Rodgers going down with a torn Achilles. Man, that is bad for him. Incredible effort by the Jets, though. Coaching genius there, coming back and actually winning that game on Monday night. That was pretty cool to see. Now,
Yeah.
We got J.K. Dobbins. He leaves the Ravens backfield in a complete mess. Justice Hill came out on top with the goal line work, scoring twice after Dobbins went down in week one. However, Gus Edwards got plenty of run as well, basically spitting the work at backfield. Probably a sign of things to come for the Ravens and the rushing attack. I expect probably Melvin Gordon to be activated and getting into the mix, but I can also see the Ravens seriously entertaining bringing in a vet in the upcoming weeks. Personally, I'm leaning towards Gus over Hill at this point, but Brandon, how do you see this backfield shaping up?
So I would actually go Hill getting the goal line touches. He was obviously the answer even when Dobbins was in the game, and Edwards is going to get his share of the carries. I think Gordon might, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a touch share. I think Hill and Edwards are the two guys going forward, and my money is on Hill scoring more points. But again, he is touchdown dependent. If you need somebody who's going to give you a 10-point floor from his carries, that's going to be Gus Edwards. I don't want any part of that backfield. Um, I've had offers. So one of the guys in one of my leagues was trying to get rid of Hill, and I was like, I just don't have any interest. I know I need a running back. I'm sliding Condre Miller in there, but I'd rather do that and come up with 0 points this week than take a chance on Hill. And
Yeah.
I don't want the Ravens backfield.
So, like, what do you think the chances are them getting kind of desperate here? Like say they go 4-1, and they have a shot at that division. Like, do you see them bringing in a guy? Do you see them bringing in like a Kareem Hunt or a Leonard Fournette?
I don't, because at that point, if they go 4-1 and Hill and Edwards and Gordon have done the job and they've stayed healthy, I don't think that they're really going to make a move. I mean, you have to think that the coaches go through this process of multiple months in the preseason. They have the players that they deal with, and it feels like a disruption to bring somebody in, wait for them to learn the playbook, have to work them in with simple play calls and things like that. If they have three guys in their stable, and Melvin Gordon was on their practice squad, so he's been there the whole time, all they're doing is they're missing their their most talented guy, and they're going with the guys that they have in the building. And I have to think that that's what Harbaugh is going to stick with, is just the guys who have been there.
I'm gonna throw out a name here that might pick up some steam when he gets healthy. That's Keaton Mitchell. Like, I liked his profile coming in. I've seen what he's done with the ball in his hands. He's quick. He could play a part in the next little while if he can get back on the field soon.
Yes, and he reminds me a lot more of J.K. Dobbins than the other two guys do.
Exactly.
And so in the important places where I've needed to, Keaton Mitchell is definitely in my IR. I think one place I still have him on a taxi squad just because nobody's moving from that. So yeah, Keaton Mitchell is definitely somebody that you can go in as soon as you have somebody in your lineup that you're going to drop. Use that IR, grab Keaton Mitchell, put him in the IR, and then grab somebody else who's going to be active.
And that's something that we don't really talk enough about, is actually like roster management and using your IR and your taxi squad spots to your advantage, because you could pick up a guy that you can maybe sell down the line while you have a guy on our IR that is waiting to get back in. So that's a really good point there, Brandon. I love it. So next
Yeah,
up is yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I try and do that every time I have to make a drop. Is I'll drop him and then I'll go in before I do any other waiver pickups. I'll look at Sleeper has it like nicely categorized. They have the people who are on IR. You can sort it by rookies, and you just go through and you just look. If somebody's on IR and it looks like they're going to be coming back after week 4 off the pup list or sometime in the middle of the season, and you can do that, you have an IR slot open. It's basically a free way to get a guy back. I mean, I did it with Jamison Williams all year last year, and and then he went and got suspended on me. So, other than that, it's a good strategy to kind of like help roster build. So I like recommending that.
Good stuff. Okay, so now Deontay Johnson will miss week 2 after suffering the dreaded hamstring injury. I think that is plaguing everybody this year. Not great news for a Steelers team that has looked horrible. They did play the 49ers, so I'm giving them a pass on that, but it's not looking like a good situation heading into week 2 with the Deontay out. I am looking at maybe Calvin Austin picking up a little bit of that slack, not Allen Robinson, while he's away, but we'll have to see. I'm not really investing in anything right now until I could see Pickett look a little bit better. But they've got another tough mashup this week as well. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
and Calvin Austin wasn't really in much of their plans last year as a rookie. He did have a couple targets once Deontay left the game. I do like Allen Robinson, at least for this week.
Yeah.
Those were the two names that I was hearing all week, were Allen Robinson and Calvin Austin. Nobody was talking about George Pickens increasing his target share. So my Pickens stocks, I think, are going to go up a little bit, but especially if Allen Robinson kind of disappears like he did in LA, I think Pickens is going to have a little bit more play. And
Yeah.
Pat Fryermuth is dinged up too, so
Yeah.
that's
With the chest or something injury, and so we have to monitor that. I think that's more of a pain tolerance thing. So I'm looking for him to go, but who knows how much and how effective he'll be. So
But
we'll see.
again, you did say that it was the 49ers. The
Yes.
49ers are violent. They beat people up.
Yeah.
More people miss games after dealing with the 49ers than any other team. And you look at what happened in their backfield. Jalen Warren wound up being the highest scoring running back in that running back room over Najee Harris, who was once again very inefficient. But I see Pittsburgh bouncing back a little bit this week, a little bit, not enough to affect my streaming, but
Yeah, but they have a
they should
really
be better.
tough matchup too. Again, their defense does not like the Browns defense doesn't make it any easier this week either.
Spoiler
So
alert.
yeah, exactly. We're gonna get into that a little bit later. But now another one. Incredible how valuable Travis Kelsey is to that Chiefs offense. Mahomes looked great in week one, but his supporting cast was horrible outside of Rashi Rice. Travis Kelsey returned to practice in limited fashion yesterday and today, a great sign for his availability this week. The Chiefs will surely need Kelsey to keep up with the high flying Jaguars coming off a great win over division rival Colts. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Chiefs offense looks like with Kelsey in there. I know Brandon is high on a Chiefs receiver this week, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, it's going to be a shootout. And I mean, last week when I submitted you my sits, Kadarius Toney was on there. That was pre-Thursday. I'm not afraid of Kadarius Toney still. He was still working his way back into game shape, if you will. He did share in the target lead in Kansas City, so he's obviously, Andy Reid wrote him in as a big part of the offense over the offseason. So I think that once he gets up to speed, as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to have his shares. Don't give up on Toney yet. Don't go buy him, but if you have him, don't worry about it.
Well, Matt Waldman was on the Football Guys podcast today, and I overheard him talking about how Tony made the right mistakes. He was in the right spots. He just didn't catch the ball. And some of it had to do with his supporting cast around him. Whereas, a guy like Sky Moore who wasn't in the right spot and didn't get the ball thrown to him. So correcting that mistake is a lot easier than correcting a bad route. So we'll see how that wide receiver room plays out. But a big plus if Kelsey can play this week.
Yeah, and there's one thing that you'll hear from people who are in the fantasy space that you should be listening to. One thing that you'll hear a lot is about good process. There are certain ways to filter through all of the noise that you hear and determine what is going to be the most likely thing to happen next. What we find is that we get into these little Twitter echo chambers where you have a lot of consensus and people freaking out about stuff. And so players tend to get crapped on pretty hard. And these little echo chambers develop where everybody seems to be out on Kadarius Toney. But we know that if you look at some of the metrics like his size, his draft capital, the investment that the Chiefs have made in him, and also his involvement in the offense, those are all metrics that you want to be looking at as positive going forward. One bad game doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be on the outs forever. As bad as that game was, it was the second worst scoring of his entire career in fantasy. But like you said, he made the right mistakes, and he's still watchable. Pay attention to him, and if he maintains his target share going into this Jacksonville shootout, he's going to be somebody that you might be able to get super cheap because of those echo chambers. Always go with the right process.
Yeah, I mean, had that game been noon on Sunday, could you imagine, the whispers being a little bit quieter because it
Yeah,
was the first game of the year on a Thursday night? You
that's a
know,
great point.
like I heard somebody talk about like T Higgins had a zero. last week, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't as, broadcasted as the Thursday night game. So we
Right.
have to take it with a grain of salt because there was a lot of other guys that didn't have great weeks either. And it's week one, and people are getting used to the new systems. A lot of new offensive coordinators out there, so there's bound to be some hiccups. And Kansas City's no exception. They got a
Yeah.
brand new OC, and things are going to look differently this year for them.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert was universally tight end 6 in drafts, and he came out and had 0 targets last
Mhm.
year. Are you giving up on Dallas Goedert? Did you all drop Dallas Goedert,
No,
or are you playing him tonight? I
exactly.
mean, what are we doing here, people?
Exactly. So another big name, aren't they all big? Not practicing this week is Austin Eckler. Uh, Wednesday was personal, so it gave you a little bit of hope, but he definitely didn't practice today again, and all signs are pointing that Eckler will be sitting out week 2 with an ankle injury. The Chargers signed Jared Patterson on Wednesday, implying that Eckler will indeed miss this week. I'm hearing reports that this could be a high ankle sprain, which could sideline him for some time. Joshua Kelly, who was heavily involved in week 1, even with Eckler in the lineup, had a great game and showed signs of standalone value. Brandon, what do you think, Joshua Kelly? Do you think he can
Well,
fill in and produce similar range numbers than Eckler?
if you had a little endoscopic camera that you could put down into my heart, you would find that there's a little space in there for Joshua Kelly, who went to the same high school in Lancaster, California, where my cousins went to school. He started his college career at my hometown, UC Davis, go Eggs, and then transferred out to UCLA, and we all forgot about him. Joshua Kelly is a legitimate running back. His efficiency metrics are not outstanding, but he is going to get the job done in that offense. I drafted Joshua Kelly a lot and have him as a handcuff in a lot of leagues because I know the Eckler is reaching the drop off point, the fall off point in Dynasty. So I have him in a lot of places where he's just going to slide in. And he had a great first week. He was splitting duties with Austin Eckler, and he still had a really good week. So does that say something about the Jacksonville rush defense, or does it say something about Josh Kelly and the Chargers run offense? We don't know yet. We're still in wait and see mode, but I like Josh Kelly a lot, and if he's available, swoop him up because it doesn't look like even if Austin Eckler plays, he's going to be his old Austin Eckler self.
Yeah, he'll be limited for sure, and they'll want to give Josh Kelly a little bit more steam there. I agree.
And
So,
the Chargers are kicking themselves for cutting
oh,
Larry Roundtree.
nah, at this point they are for sure. Yeah. So the AFC West leading Las Vegas Raiders came
Woo!
out came out of week 1 a little banged up, and
Mm.
could be without two of their primary targets heading into week 2 tilt against the Buffalo Bills. Adams is dealing with a foot injury, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play. Jacoby Myers coming off his best game of his career, going 9 for 81 and 2 touchdowns, and then suffered a concussion and is currently in protocol. Doesn't look good for his availability this week. Does that sound weird to you, saying touchdown and Jacoby Myers in the same sentence?
I was the guy that held on to him for too long, waiting for him to get that first touchdown, going, "What are you guys doing? He's so good." And then he finally got his first touchdown and then disappeared. And everybody kind of forgot about him. He fell off the map because of the New England Patriots pass offense and Brady was gone and blah, blah, blah. I liked him as a signing, as a free agent signing for the Raiders. I thought that it was a good bring in, although you have the 2022 wide receiver 11 who is still in your camp, and I think Hunter Renfrow might step up in Jacoby's absence as a slot receiver. The only thing that I see with Renfrow is that he's a very he fits more in the Chiefs offense. He fits more in an offense where they're going to change plays or create plays week to week in their practices. I think Josh McDaniels is more of a hardcore do things this way coach, and I don't think he likes the element of Renfrow that makes Renfrow good. In that, if Renfrow is dialed in with his quarterback, he can go out there and say, "I'm going to get open, look for me," and then all of a sudden he's open. The guy runs ferocious routes. He puts defensive backs on skates and makes them look like they shouldn't even be paid to play football. The problem is that happens in improvisation time and not necessarily with the schemes that McDaniels throws out there. So Renfro was almost non-existent last week. Trey Tucker, who I think is, he might be okay in best ball as a deep threat, maybe catching a couple long touchdowns a game if Garoppolo can connect on a 60-yard pass. I think he might be worth looking at. But going into next week against the Bills, I would fade all Raiders wideouts except for Devontae Adams. I think it's going to be Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. And if it's not Devontae Adams, then the Raiders don't have a chance. But if Myers doesn't play, I don't really see anybody else stepping up. Michael Mayer disappeared. There aren't really a whole lot of options there beyond Devontae Adams. So
Yeah,
they
agreed.
just don't have depth.
Yeah, they're at their top right now, and maybe this is the best they'll be all season. But I love those Raiders. Uh,
Woo!
so Mark Andrews practiced in limited fashion Wednesday and Thursday, and would be welcome addition to the Ravens. It sounded like he was gonna maybe play last week, but they kind of held off because it was kind of a weaker opponent. So I really expect Andrews to play this week, and against a Bengals team that will be eager to get back on track after getting pounded by the Browns. So should be a good game. And hopefully Andrews is back, at least in a decoy, position, but he should get his regular workload.
Well, let's hope he does so that we can all take Isaiah Likely out of our tight end position.
Exactly. Yeah, no kidding. Now Christian Watson missed practice again to start the week, so week 2 is definitely in doubt. After a couple great showings in week 1, looks like Dobbs and Musgrave will continue to step up if Watson misses more time. What do you think about that?
I was really surprised with the job that Jordan Love did last week. I thought that he was going to get clamped down by that Bears
Yeah.
defensive backfield, and they looked like they were made out of rice paper. I haven't been high on Watson, and I'm not still high on Dobbs. That's a spoiler alert.
Hmm.
I think they're both very touchdown dependent, and I'll get into that later. I like Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. I like those guys stepping up, and yeah, I the Christian Watson thing doesn't bother me because I don't have a lot of shares on him.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. So now Aaron Jones also missed practice again today, and that hammy is crept up. I mean, he was the RB1 last week, so I know there's a lot of lineups that would be hurting if he missed. I see a big role for AJ Dillon, especially if Watson's out. That's too big. That's their two main playmakers losing. So I see a heavy run game heavily on AJ Dillon, especially against that Falcons team that's going to run too. So, this could be a game that's, 10-7. And
Yeah, yeah,
so,
I'm not high on AJ Dillon either. He didn't run the ball very efficiently last
yeah,
week.
no, he didn't.
Aaron Jones is the killer. If he doesn't play, it's going to hurt me in a lot of different places. But if he's out, AJ Dillon has to be the go-to guy. You have to plug him in. He's going to get the run. He's going to get the snap share, and you got to go with him.
Totally. So Darren Waller didn't practice Wednesday, taking a vet day, but he did practice today, looking as though this might be the routine moving forward until he gets back from that hamstring injury. Maybe getting a vet day on Wednesday and then practicing Thursday and Friday. I expect Waller to play in this one and once again be the focal point of this offense behind Barkley. So should be a bounce back game. I'm hoping for the Giants. They have a weaker opponent this week, so you know they need to turn it around in this game to get back on track.
Yeah, kind of like what we talked about with the Steelers getting clamped down by the 49ers. Maybe the Giants just ran into a buzzsaw and they're gonna wind up being okay. Um, won't it be so nice by week 3 to have all of our tight ends that we invested so heavily in back?
Yeah, totally.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. Like the top three essentially. I know Hawkinson looks like the money play right now after tonight's game and what he did in week 1. Yeah. So if you get any Hawkinson shares, you're probably pretty happy right now. Now Judy's back this week, which is a surprise. Most thought, that Schefter report that came out a week and a half ago was stating he could be up, out of 6 games, but looks like he's going to be back this week, and the Broncos surely need something to get going. So we're hoping, I'm assuming he's not gonna be, full strength. It'll probably take him 3 games to get up to full speed, but, come week 5, I'd expect Judy to be on pace for a good season. Hopefully he can help get them in the right directions, but the Broncos did not look good week 1.
No, and you say they they need something. They need a new quarterback. Um, No, the takeaway for me with the Broncos game, apart from the fact that they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders 17-16, and the fact that they lost last year on opening day 17-16, was the fact that Sean Payton came out in the offseason and completely gave it to UC Davis legend Nathaniel Hackett about how terrible a head coach he was. And then what does Sean Payton do? He goes out and he loses his first game at the
Mhm.
same exact score that UC Davis lost at, that UC Davis Aggie legend Nathaniel Hackett lost his first game, and he talked so much trash about. And it was just desserts, as they say. It was a
Mhm.
comeuppance, and it was very glorious, especially when they lost to my team. You
Yeah.
don't mess with UC Davis legends.
I love it. I love it. And then the last one here, which actually just poked up today, is week 1 darling Puka Cooper Nakua. Cup uh, I've I've heard so many nicknames for that one. I couldn't even keep up, but a strained oblique could be a multi-week absence. There's not much information out there right now, but that is something we're gonna have to really monitor. So, what do you think's gonna happen there?
When I hear strained oblique, I think of Major League Baseball hitters. They do it all the time, and it takes them forever to get back just because that's part of your ab system and it's part of your twisting. And what do you do as a wide receiver when you're running routes? What do you do as a wide receiver when you're on a go and the ball's coming over your shoulder? Those are such essential muscles, almost as essential as like a hamstring or a calf. It's not something that we hear a lot about, but it is pretty bad. So I don't know. 15 targets in week 1. That everybody spent half their fab this week
Yep.
on grabbing Nakua off the waiver wire. And I'm not going to say it was a bad investment. It was just an unfortunate timing investment. And you'd like to see a situation where we would have better injury reports on Monday rather than Thursday about a guy who was so involved in the offense on Sunday.
Yeah, no
So
kidding.
Nakua's a wait and see. I thought he was a pretty deep sleeper coming out in the draft. Didn't get the draft capital. Had a kind of a bad injury history coming out of college. He wasn't on the radar as one of the guys that was going to break out the way that he did in his first game, but he sure did, and a lot of people are really upset tonight because of that news. So keep an eye on him moving forward, especially if you if you blew half your fab. I feel sorry for you. That's a rough way to go in your first week.
Well, and if it makes it any easier, if you had like a lineup decision that you're kind of borderline on, now you can kind of make that call a little bit easier, knowing that, the Rams are playing the 49ers and Puka may be a little, banged up. So that might, err on the side of caution there. And if you got a safer option in your lineup, I know that I know the ceiling is high there with Nakua and the target share, but who knows if he's banged up and playing the 49ers, if you got a safer option, maybe head that way.
And if you want to like look at parallels with that Rams offense and the Steelers offense and what they did against the Niners, I would put Tutu Atwell in the same boat as Calvin Austin last week, and I would put Van Jefferson in the same boat as like a Deontay John or not Deontay, Allen Robinson next week. So those guys move up a little bit if Puka's out, just based on attrition. And Ben Skoranek, I would stay away from. I know that the Rams like him, and he filled in for Cooper Kupp a little bit last week to the point where I had him on waivers in a couple dynasty leagues as the season was unfolding. But all indications from the offseason was that Sean McVay isn't really a huge Ben Skoranek fan, didn't want them to have to use him as a depth piece and wanted to keep him in the return game. So I would stay away from him. Tutu Atwell looked pretty good. He's just a fast little guy, and Van Jefferson has to break out at some point. So why not be against the 49ers?
Let's do it. All right, let's change the mood here a little bit and get into something a little less depressing. Week 1 showed us a lot. Our job is to adjust. What adjustments did you make this week, Brandon? Who you got as one of your starts of the week?
Starts. All right. My first start this week is going to surprise some people, um, especially people who know me because I have done nothing but slag this dude since he was at Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield is a start for me against Chicago. Last week, Chicago allowed Jordan Love a quarterback rating of 123.2. He was 27 on 34. Baker Mayfield didn't do too shabby against the Vikings. I think if he chucks the ball 30 times, he's got some receivers that are able to bring it in, and he doesn't necessarily need to rely on Kate Otten. He's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Those guys are kind of good. Rashad White is a good receiving back out of the backfield. So all that needs to happen for Baker Mayfield to jump into the top 12 quarterbacks this week is throw one more single solitary touchdown. If he maintains the same level that he had against the Vikings, and he should against Chicago, because they allowed Jordan Love to do so well, I think Baker Mayfield's a very sneaky start play this week to sneak into that top 12.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, those that would have to work for him. I think they need to get Rashad White a little bit more involved in the passing game there, because they really didn't use him, and that's where he's effective. I'm not sure why they're using him up the middle as much as they do when he's not that great of a runner. But I'm not the coach there, so but yeah, I agree. I mean, Baker could that is a sneaky one, and they have started the season well, and they got some weapons there to exploit. So yeah, definitely good.
Let me make something clear real quick. My starts are not your top 12 guys. My starts are guys who have the ability to break into the top
Mhm.
12. And if you're running Superflex, these are guys that I would feel comfortable with having in the QB2 position. If you're in a single quarterback league, Baker Mayfield might not be the guy for you because you probably invested in somebody who might have had a bad week last week. So don't do something like, pull the cord on Lamar Jackson and put Baker Mayfield in there. I'm talking about in Superflex leagues. If you need a QB2, go ahead and take a chance on Baker. He might surprise you.
Yeah,
That's what my sets are.
agreed, 100%. Yeah, and thanks for clarifying that, because yes, there could be some misconception there. Yeah, it's these two quarterback leagues we're looking at, and especially with that Baker Mayfield call. So my first start this week is T Higgins versus Baltimore Ravens. People have been pushing the panic button after week 1. Remember, people, we must be patient and trust our processes. Maybe the Bengals just start season slow. It happened last year as well. I highly doubt this is a sign of things to come for the Bengals. Perhaps it's just a little hangover from maybe a $219 million contract party. I don't know. But the Bengals don't want to start the 2023 season 0-2. Even worse, 0-2 against divisional opponents. The Bengals will be out for blood in this one against an already wounded Ravens secondary with injury to Marcus Williams. The secondary is now almost decimated. The Bengals pass catchers should feast in this one. Burrow and Higgins were just a little bit of off last week, probably due to Burrow resting in the preseason. Higgins had 8 targets in week 1 and should see at least that heading into week 2. Of those 8 targets, 6 of them were not catchable at all. Like, they were way over his head or behind him. So I'm looking for Higgins and Burrow to bounce back after that week 1, whatever. We're going to forget about whatever week 1 was there.
I
Um,
I
Higgins
just I
did.
went to sleep last Friday and I woke up
The,
yesterday, so I don't.
it,
I'm just looking at stats. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping Higgins has another one of those big games that he did in 2021 where he went 12 for 194 and 2, but I'd settle for, maybe, 6 catches for, 90 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Uh, but don't second guess. Let's start Higgins in this one with confidence.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, what are we looking for guys to do? That's what we want. We want 6 catches, 70 to 90 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, that's what we're looking for from everybody. If everybody in our lineup could do that, they don't need to score 40 points, 45 points. They don't need to have huge games. If everybody in our lineups did 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, we'd win leagues.
Absolutely. So who do you got as your next start there, Brandon?
My next one is set for 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown this week. Sorry. I have Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Rashee Rice is part of that god awful Chiefs 7 wide receiver receiving room. Okay. Here's the thing. Rashee Rice last week earned more targets and a snap share than anybody on that team not named Kadarius Toney. But he did more with those catches. He showed Patrick Mahomes that he is going to be in the spot he needs to be, and he's capable of catching the ball. One of the big differences with Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, Sky Moore last year made a lot of mistakes and was only targeted 33 times. He made 22 catches. I think Rashee Rice already has he has a quarter of the, or one sixth in 1 week out of 17, he has 1/6 the number of targets that Sky Moore had last year. So he's definitely a flex play. It's going to be a shootout with Jacksonville, and I think Mahomes needs somebody to complement Travis Kelce, and I think Rashee Rice is going to turn out to be that guy, and that's a chance that I'm willing to take this week.
I'm hoping somebody emerges there. Someone just to have something set in stone so that we can kind of rely on somebody. We can, get off our Sky Moore or get off our Tony. Let's find somebody. And I mean, Rashee Rice looked amazing with his opportunity. And when he was on the field, he was getting targeted. And that's what you're kind of looking for in these situations. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. So my next one is
I'm
Ramondre.
going to be throwing darts until
Yeah.
Marquez Valdez Scantling takes over that
Yeah,
wide receiver.
I would really hope that's not the case, man. Really hope. So my next start is Ramondre Stevenson versus the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins gave up a league leading 234 yards on the ground against the Chargers on Sunday, and I expect Bill Belichick to exploit the hell out of that. The plan will be to try and slow down the Dolphins' offense. The best way of doing that is by keeping them off the field. The Chargers tried to do that in week one, but couldn't hold the ball long enough to keep the Fins in check. The Patriots will look to keep Tyreek and company off the field on Sunday with a heavy dose of Ramondre and Ezekiel Elliott. Even though Stevenson didn't do that great in week one, his usage leaves room for optimism against a softer run defense, um, a much softer run defense than the Eagles. Stevenson still got the majority of snaps and was the main target in the passing game. So I'm assuming it's going to be a good game, and I think Ramondre will have a good one in this one, hopefully.
Yeah, and I can't imagine a scenario in which Bill Belichick wants Bill O'Brien to call 40 or 50 passes in a game. So I think he's had meetings with him this week, and he said, "Hey, chill out. Don't make Mac Jones throw the ball 50 times. Let's give the ball to Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott a little bit more." That just seems to be more of the Patriots' MO. Maybe Bill O'Brien just wanted to air it out, but I don't see, if they don't have to throw the ball, I don't see them doing that a lot, and that makes Ramondre Stevenson a play.
Yeah, like I don't think any team wants to get into a shootout against the Dolphins. Even the Chargers last week. Look what happened. Like they couldn't keep up. Like anytime the Dolphins had the ball, it was like boom, 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 gone in the end zone. So
Yeah, and the Dolphins couldn't really do much to stop Joshua Kelly. So,
yeah.
you know, I like Ramondre.
Okay, who's your last start this week?
My last start, and again, there's a caveat. This is not a normal guy who is going to be in the starts column because he should be just a lock in your lineup every week. But a lot of us did make the mistake of giving this guy just one extra week to see what he was going to do, and that's Brees Hall. Brees Hall is back. This guy is back. So whatever you were thinking, just like me, I had him in my most important league sitting on the bench. And don't overthink it. Stick him back in your lineup, set it and forget it. The guy is too explosive. He's too good at what he does. He's too good at reading the defense. He's too explosive. He runs away from everybody. He showed that he was a little bit out of shape because he didn't get that last 15 yards on that one run where he went up on the right for like an 80-yard scamper or whatever. He's not 100% back, but Brees Hall's 80% back is better than most people's 100%. So Brees Hall is a start. Don't give it any more thought. It's the wait is over. Stick him back in your lineup. You've been sitting on him all year. Put him back in there and let's go win a trophy.
What a great story that is. Like coming back from that injury and there was so much going around, like what a great start to his rookie season. Like I had a lot of shares of him last year and it just killed my season when he went down. I was scrambling afterwards because he was my guy. So seeing him come back and perform the way he did is just, you know, I love it. I that was the
Yes.
best part of that. Like if that didn't happen, the Jets would have been a really sob story, but seeing Breeze come back is amazing. So
Now, I had a game Christmas Eve 2016 where the Raiders were on the come up and uh, Derek Carr got broken, broke his ankle. We were about to win the division. We were about to take on the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. All of that stuff was going to come to fruition, and we all got our hearts broken that night. And there was nothing good to take away from that game against the Indianapolis Colts. The flip side is the Jets on Monday night on 9/11 losing Aaron Rodgers like they did, for Brees Hall to break out the way that he did, and then for them to win on that punt return by an undrafted free agent who was part of the Hard Knocks story. Like that night could not have ended any better given where it started on play 4 of the offense. So that was a good night.
that was and I like that is all Robert Saleh. Like that is him to a T. Like him in any other organization, honestly, like would be sought after. Like that guy knows his stuff and that the team plays for him.
The
And
whole Hard Knocks theme of
yeah,
show everybody who you are. The Jets went out and did that.
loved it. What a game. I'm rooting for this Jets team now more than ever. And it's weird how, your sentiments on Zach Wilson even changes now that a lot of people are now rooting for him, where last year it was like people were rooting against him. So it's crazy what a coach can do to a system.
As my son likes to say about Zach Wilson, throw bombs, bang moms, and sing psalms.
Oh, I love it. All right. My last start this week is Zay Flowers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The clear-cut number one receiver in this offense, Zay Flowers, busted on the scene, commanding a whopping 45% target share, going 9 for 78 in his first game as a Raven. A lot had to do with Mark Andrews being out. However, it was very encouraging that Lamar was looking Flowers' direction so often. In a game that Lamar only threw 22 passes, 10 targets were for Flowers, and that is definitely worth noting. They were designing plays just for Flowers to get him more touches, and that's exactly what you want to see. This week, the Ravens play a hungry Bengals team looking to bounce back. And the Ravens secondary is pretty banged up, like I mentioned earlier. So this could turn into a pass happy game where Flowers could be peppered with targets. Even if Mark Andrews does return, the Flowers has carved off a big enough role to make him at least flex worthy. And I'm jamming him in my rosters wherever I can.
Absolutely. So you're Canadian. You might know what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
If you know anything about figure skating, there is an element of figure skating where people are supposed to skate forms. So they do a figure eight. They're supposed to carve out a specific shape. And that's what I think of when I watch Zay Flowers run routes. There's supposed to be a specific shape on the field. And you see a lot of guys who they call it rounding off. They're supposed to run an out and up, and they round off that out. Uh, Zay Flowers carves routes into the grass, and he's a joy to watch. That guy can play. I'm
Yeah.
all in Zay Flowers.
Somebody, I don't know, I'm not sure who it was, compared him to Kadarius Tony, but without an attitude, with the book smarts, and doesn't get injured. So not bad, eh? That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
So let's go with your sits. These are important
Okay,
here. So what's your first one?
who is not starting in my lineups this week? First one I'm going to go with is Daniel Jones. Um, we all had a lot of high hopes for Daniel Jones. He had a really good year last year. He showed that he can run. He doesn't. He's one of those quarterbacks that doesn't necessarily need to be relied on for his arm talent. He can run, but he was 15 of 28. He's got a terrible wide receiving core. He's got they Darius Slayton. Wandale Robinson was hurt. He's got Paris Campbell, who everybody had high hopes for coming into the season. We want to see more Jalen Hyatt, and we want to see a healthy Darren Waller. And until Darren Waller is 100% healthy, Saquon Barkley can be the star of the show. It doesn't have to be Daniel Jones. Arizona can be run on, and they're not going to require 35 throws from Daniel Jones. They're not going to require him to do a whole lot. They just need to go out and manage the game. And so I don't think he's going to have a big week. I'm not saying that he's not good and doesn't have a high enough ceiling to be started in fantasy. I just don't see it this week. I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think Sam Howell had a nice, efficient game against Arizona. Didn't do anything spectacular. I would expect exactly the same from Daniel Jones this week. That puts him in the middle teens of the quarterback rankings this week.
100%. And I really think that the Giants need to ride Saquon Barkley's back this week to get them back into confidence. When he's running on all cylinders, that offense just seems to be clicking better. So if we look at all the good games last year that Daniel Jones has, is when they had a lot of Barkley involved. So they need to get Barkley more involved. They need to get him the ball in all kinds of situations. So hopefully they can do that in week 2, and then maybe we'll see some things open up in that passing offense in week 3 and beyond.
I think they'll have a bounce back week because it's hard to like get absolutely mollywopped like they did last week and not come back a little bit. That especially in week 2. Week
Yeah.
1 throws a lot of curveballs at you. I mean, I remember going with an almost undefeated Denver team against the Jets in week 1 of a what do you call it? The God damn it, you can edit this out, but the the league where you God damn it, the league where you pick a team and they Survivor. I
Survivor League.
remember I remember going with Denver against the Jets one year when Denver was almost undefeated the year before in a Survivor League, and everybody on the planet had Denver winning that game, and everybody on the planet lost their Survivor League in week 1. Week 1 throws curveballs at people, and you never really can tell. So Dallas might not be as good as they showed, and the Giants might not be as bad as they showed. I think it's a little bit in between there, but I don't think this is the week that the Giants totally show out. They'll probably win, but
Yeah,
I don't think they'll be 100% back. So
agreed. It's their starting point where they need to be. So my first sit here is Terry McLaurin versus the Denver Broncos. Not the best start for McLaurin. 28 years old, missed most of preseason due to turf toe. His status was in doubt all week leading up to week 1. I was even surprised he played that week. Heading into week 2, the Commanders are headed to Denver to play a good defense in the Broncos. I predict that this is going to be a really low scoring affair with lots of running on both sides of the ball. Both teams are working in new offensive coordinators and schemes into their offense. McLaurin, clearly a step behind last week, will probably be slowed down by his turf toe for at least a couple more games. McLaurin will probably be covered by Patrick Surtain most of the day, and he kept your Devontae Adams in check for pretty much all of week 1. In addition to this, we got to keep in mind that Dotson is emerging as a number 1 target in that offense, earning 20% plus target share when playing with Howell. So this is more likely. There must be a safer option in your lineup, maybe on your bench, that you can play instead of McLaurin until he can get back to full health.
yeah, and don't forget about Logan Thomas. He had a big week. So it's not that Sam Howell is bereft of targets.
Yeah.
He's McLaurin. If Patrick Surtain is on him,
hmm
he's gonna not have a great week. I would not be playing McLaurin if I had another option.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Another guy there, Curtis Samuel, looked decent last week. I could see him playing into this game as well. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of passing in this game. And It doesn't look good for McLaurin up against Surtain. So we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
Dotson to the moon though, because
Yeah.
the guy that was on him was on the guy that's going to
Yeah.
be on him is on
It was
Jacoby
on
Myers,
Myers and who had a
and
monster game. Yeah.
Myers got loose a couple times. So
Uh,
let's stay in the Denver Washington matchup, and for my next set, I've got Samaje Perine.
mm-hmm.
All right, so he had an equal target share with Javonte in terms of the passing game, but he had fewer rushes. He's going against the Washington team that shut down Arizona's running game for 58 yards total rushing, which included -4 yards from James Conner's handcuff, Keontae Ingram. James Conner managed 62 yards. So if you want to know where I came up with that 58 yards, I like Samaje Perine. I don't think he's the RB1 clear cut in Denver, and that Washington run defense is pretty tough. I don't see either Williams or Perine having a great game, but I feel like Javonte is going to work himself into a little bit more of a touch share in this week, and Perine's going to fall off just a little bit.
Yeah, I see that progression happening slowly this year where it's going to just slowly happen where Javante will just soon take over that backfield in a more maybe 60-40 split, maybe 65-35 if he does start showing out. So um hopefully we see that very soon. S-
Yep.
So my next sit is going to be a controversial one. Christian Kirk versus the Chiefs. This one, I know this one could be a barn burner with the highest scoring point total of the week. So why the hell am I considering sitting him one of the best receiving options in this game? Well, the
Oh, I know.
picture the picture last week in week 1 painted a clearer picture. The Jaguars offense leads me to believe that Kurt has slid his way down in the pecking order in this pass catching offense. So he registered just 60% snap share, clearly number 3 behind new alpha Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones, who actually played 89% of the snaps. Like Jones was on the field more than Ridley was, so that was impressive. Kirk was taken off the field when the Jaguars were running 2 wide receiver sets. Not a great sign for things to come. Kirk was the least targeted out of all the players that drew a target for the Jags in week 1. A 10% target share is just not going to cut it for a player who was drafted to be a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 at worst. I was worried about Kirk heading into this season, and now I'm ready to push the panic button. I'd rather even start Zay Jones in this week. Jones was clearly the huge part of this offense, getting 7 targets, 5 receptions, 55 yards, and a touchdown. So I could see that being another case this week where Zay Jones is just the more efficient target in that offense.
And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me after the year that Kirk had last year. However, obviously, Doug Peterson has something that he's trying to do in bringing Ridley in, and suddenly Kirk disappears. We'll have to see over the next few weeks whether that's going to be a continuing trend or not. But I'm not willing this week to push the button and make sure that this is Kirk's go week. I liked him a lot last year, and he just he wasn't on the field a lot, and there has been no injury designation or anything like that, so it's kind of baffling. And I've seen Zay Jones have really good year in Las Vegas and a really good year in Jacksonville. So I think he's starting to come into his own. And then you've got Etienne, you got Evan Ingram. There's a lot of target competition on that team, and if Lawrence isn't looking for Kirk this year because his primary read is Calvin Ridley, Kirk's just going to disappear.
Well, if I were to tell you that Zay Jones is, since 2022, since joining the Jaguars, his target share has been 20% plus. So, he is not somebody that we can ignore now.
Right.
So, what's your last sit of the week?
My last sit is Romeo Dubs.
Okay.
So Dubs comes into this week with a hamstring concern. I don't think he was. I don't remember if he was listed on our injury report, but there has been some talk about him being a little bit banged up. Last week, um, I'm going to go back to this. Jordan Love had a passer rating of 123.2. He was 27 of 34, and Romeo Dubs had 5 targets and 26 yards receiving. Now, Dubs had 2 touchdowns, and that's what pushed Dubs' fantasy points into the area of relevancy. But kind of like Watson last year, he's going to be, at this point, it looks like he's going to be touchdown dependent. If he were to not get those touchdowns and he goes out and he has 5 total targets for 26 yards, do you want him in your lineup? Is there any reason to believe that he's going to get more of a target share this week? I don't think so. So I'm not going with the steam on Dubs, and I'm sitting him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fair. Like he's a guy coming into this year with some question marks, and there's some potential there. But now that Aaron Jones is questionable too, I just think they're gonna blanket him. He's the only guy that is proven to be a producer at this stage with all those rookies and young guys there. So, him getting double covered is not something that I want to see either.
No, and he kind of took the place of in the route tree that Watson had. He's going to run the ball, but you have Jaden Reed running out of the slot, who Jordan Love has loved all summer long, and Luke Musgrave running up the
Hmm.
seams. I think Jordan Love has a lot more opportunity. He has more options than just looking to throw the ball deep or find dubs, and doesn't look great for him.
Yeah, totally. And then my last sit here is Kenny Pickett versus the Browns. I feel bad for Pickett and the Steelers going up against the 49ers in week 1, and now they have to go against another tough run defense against the Browns in week 2. The Browns completely shut down Joe Burrow and the Bengals in week 1. I can't imagine that they will do what they will do against the Steelers without a Deontay Johnson and potentially Pat Fryermuth. It's not looking good for Pickett and company. The Steelers gave up 5 sacks in week 1. Their newly assembled O-line is banged up, and I don't see that number getting any better in week 2. Jim Schwartz is going to have a heyday against this Steelers O-line that is still trying to get healthy and gel. Pickett will be under siege again this week, and he doesn't do particularly well when he's under pressure. Pickett wouldn't be on your radar in single QB leagues, but if you're in a super flex league looking for a QB2 to start, I would strongly advise against Pickett in this one.
I agree, and that leads me into what I was going to talk about next. So every week on this Dynasty Pros weekend warm up, we're going to do the news and the injuries and the starts and sits, and then we're going to talk about the streamers. And our focus at dynastyprosfootball.com is on dynasty leagues, including IDP and Devi. However, we all make our bread on redraft, and that's what most people play. Um, Over the years, my strategy has always been in redraft to draft tight ends, quarterbacks, and defenses as late as I possibly could, and kickers as well. So I have developed a strategy where every week I'm streaming defenses and tight ends in a lot of leagues. In a lot of leagues, if I can get a good value tight end and hang
Mhm.
on to them, that's one thing. But defense and tight end streaming. So I'm going to talk every week about who I'm looking at as far as streaming. Last week it was Washington and Logan Thomas. I wanted whoever was starting at tight end out of the Washington tight end room. And I think I had Musgrave in there. We had Musgrave. Tight ends, there were some good ones that wound up working out. So this week, my big defense streamer, the Cleveland Browns.
Mhm.
So I do expect a little bit of bounce back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, the Browns aren't the Niners defense, but they are very, very well coached. Now, the Browns defense special teams was 1 point away, one defensive point away from being the defense number 12. So that's what we're talking about here is picking a defense that's going to be ranked somewhere in the 12. Uh, Against Pittsburgh, the 49ers were the defense number 7. So if you're going to make that jump from 1 point away to 12 into the top 8, that's somebody that I'm going to be looking at. Like Mike was saying, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be without Deontay Johnson. There's a possibility they might be without Pat Fryermuth. They're going to be looking at Allen Robinson, George Pickens, and Calvin Austin as their starting wide receiver room. And the 49ers held the Steelers to 37 total rushing yards between Warren and Najee Harris last week. So I'm dropping whoever I need to, and I'm grabbing the Browns for the week.
Of course, Browns is a smash hit this week. I say. I'm going to add one there just out of the top of my head is the Bucks versus the Bears. The Bucks made Kirk Cousins' day miserable, forcing 3 turnovers in Week 1. The Bucks looked to build off their Week 1 against the Bears team that looked like a high school team at times on Sunday. So Bucks at home versus a Bears team that is looking for an identity here. So I could see them smashing this week too.
And if you are a coaching staff that allows Chase Claypool back onto your football field after the tape that came out last week, I don't see the Bears doing much against the Bucks this week.
No
So
kidding.
yeah, I'm on board with that one. All right, and then for tight ends, Greg Dulcich is out for probably about 4 weeks with a torn hamstring. He missed the first 5 weeks of the season last week with it, the last 2 weeks of the season with it, and he's getting that ball rolling once again. So there's a guy who was in New Orleans last year that Sean Payton personally escorted back over to Denver. His name is Adam Troutman, and in week 1, he finished as the tight end 10 on 5 targets against the Las Vegas Raiders. There were 7 total Denver tight end targets. That's including Dulcich, who left the game, and they're playing a Washington team that gave up 12 tight end targets to Arizona. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a tight end that finished with 5 targets on 7 total team targets to the position. What if that turns into 12? We're looking at a bigger week for Adam Troutman, and he's somebody that I had my eye on in deep dynasty leagues last year as somebody who possibly could step up. But when you were looking at a tight end room of Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson, and then that he was definitely low on the list. Although I had him in my watch list, and it looks like he's about to get his opportunity. And we know what Russell Wilson can do with tight ends.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham, anybody? So yeah, I like Troutman a lot this week. He might even improve on that tight end 10 finish that he had last week.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And I got one to pop in there just for those that might be looking for another streamer. There is I really like Hunter Henry. 6 targets, 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown in week 1. It looks like Henry is the number 2 target in this offense and is going to pass the ball like all over this year. I think he's a must start. Um, especially with the landscape of this tight end position, like he could be a streamer now, but turn into a weekly starter by the end of the year if that's how Mac Jones is going to look moving forward.
Last year, I drafted Hunter Henry in every redraft league that I was in round 15, and he absolutely did nothing.
Yeah, I know.
And I was having a conversation with a buddy the other day. We had a big party for opening day. And he said, who I really like this year? I like Hunter Henry. And I was like, I've loved Hunter Henry. Woo pig. I've been a Hunter Henry fan since he was at Arkansas. And I love his brother. And I've watched him, and I wanted him to do well last year, and he didn't. And so he went into the streaming pile for me, and I just so happened to miss the week one boat because you can anticipate what Bill O'Brien was going to do with that offense. You knew something was going to be different, but you didn't know how different.
Yeah.
And Jonnu Smith is gone. It's just the Hunter Henry show now. And if you don't have Hunter Henry picked up already, we like Andrew Cooper's yin and yang tight end. And so if you drafted a solid tight end and then went Hunter Henry late, or even just picked him up off the waiver wire, he's going to be a yang tight end that actually produces this year. And I love the pick. I love the pick.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, I wanted to mention if you aren't a Dynasty Pros member, you are actually missing out big time here. For only $3.99 a month or $39.99 per year, you get full access to all our premium content as well as the industry leading trade calculator. This trade calculator is unlike no other. It considers Dynasty and IDP. We are bringing you some of the best Devi, Dynasty, and IDP content there is on our website. So Thanks for joining us in our first Dynasty Pros weekend warm-up. Brandon and I will be leading you into the weekend every week this season, going on over everything you need to know going into each week.
Yeah.
Um, it's been great, Brandon. You want to
Yeah.
remind everyone where they can find you and all your content?
Yeah, so look, go to dynastypros.com, subscribe if you haven't. It's very, very affordable. Like Mike said, we do have great IDP content. We have great Devi content. And I know personally because we have a whole staff of writers who are all playing against each other in Devi leagues, and we are all paying attention, and we're all writing really, really good stuff about Devi. Um, and again, that is at dynastyprosfootball.com. So go there. You can look up our Dynasty Dilemma series where we take dynasty players and run through the pros and cons and basically advise what you should do with that person, if you should buy him, sell him, hold him, whatnot. Getting into next summer, we'll have a lot of draft advice and things like that. But yeah, that's where to find your dynasty content. Dynasty Dilemmas. Find the Dynasty Dilemmas. Mike has some really good ones. You can click on the author byline and find my stuff there. Find me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. There's a link in there to my Substack, or you can look on Substack at BigBonedFFB. And find me on YouTube. Check out some of my podcasts at BigBonedFFB on YouTube. And for whatever you do, whether it's these Dynasty Pros weekend warm-ups that we're doing, any of the other Dynasty Pro YouTube content, which is all fantastic. I've been a guest on the Stew with JT Brew before, and we want to see y'all there. I know Romero's doing a lot of really good stuff. As on all videos, like, subscribe, hit the bell, share, and comment, and get those algorithms boosted up, because we feel like we're doing good work, and we want a lot more eyes on us, and the whole Dynasty Pros crew. So find me there, find Mike there, and let's get the word out.
Yeah, man. You can find me also on the Twitter page at FFCanuck99 and all my written content at dynastypros.com. And like Brendan had mentioned, let's just make sure that we get our stuff out there, like, subscribe, and let's all dominate in week 2. Thanks a lot,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Like
We'll
we
see you
appreciate
next week, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone joining in and